if we have to move to an online vote on the proposal from UVM, we could do that. So Laura is recording this as a public meeting. I'll just go over the agenda for first thing is we're going to welcome everybody, and then we'll have a roll call of members that are present to establish whether we have a quorum or not. Laura's going to give us an update on the proposals that are making their way through the pipeline. There are about 12 selected projects, and Laura's going to give us a brief update on that. And then we're going to have this discussion about the UVM proposal, and hopefully can hold a vote. And then Jeremy had asked if time allows to talk about some of the work on the committee work. So we'll try to go through some of that, and then public comment and adjourn. And we're aiming for, 11:45 if all possible. So why don't we begin with sort of attendance? And I'm going to turn it over to Laura Ginsberg. And Laura, maybe you can go through and rattle off some names and see how we're at.
Sure. So I'm just going to go down the list here. If you can just say if you are here, that would be helpful. If you need help unmuting, if you're on the phone, it's *6. If you're on the computer, you can just hit the mic button or Control-Shift-M. All right, we have Eugene Audette.
Here.
Beth Kennett.
Here.
Brian McGarry.
Here.
Andy Birch. Will Gladstone. Kurt Magnan. John Jenkins. I saw John's name. He must have gotten back off. Martha Manning.
Here.
Tom Bellavance.
Here.
Dina Benjamin. Darlene Reynolds. Sarah Stebbins. Katie Lawyer Hale. Mateo Keeler.
Here.
Jeremy Stevenson. And Seth Gardner.
Here.
All right, great, thank you. So we do not have enough DFA members to make a quorum at the moment.
Okay. Well, maybe some people will hop on, and why don't we begin, Laura, just going over an update on the projects that were awarded back in the fall. So you can give us a status update.
Great, thank you. So as you all hopefully recall, back at the October meeting, you voted to fund 12 projects of the ones that were submitted, totaling $2,224,449 of the $2.25 million budget. Of those projects, we have 3 that have been, actually 4 that are signed and underway. That includes Agency 29, 2 from New England Dairy, and the Vermont Dairy Producer Alliance project. So all of those have gone through the whole process. They are signed and underway. We have 6 more that are in the signature process. So they've been drafted, they've gotten legal counsel review, and they are on their way to being signed and underway. There's 1 remaining from New England Dairy, the 2 from Pluck, and 1 from Vermont Dairy Industry Association, where I am still working on edits, and they're going back and forth between myself and the contractor. The Pluck 2 should be finalized and under legal review next week, and then out for signature, and as well as the final New England Dairy one. Vermont Dairy Industry Association is working through theirs, and I don't have a timeline to get that one underway. So all 12 awarded contracts. 11 of them should be fully underway by the end of the month, which was the goal. And I'm pretty pleased with the progress. It's been a lot of effort on behalf of the contractors to go back and forth with me to get the contracts how they need to be, get the reporting in place. So I'm happy to answer any questions about what that process looks like or the ones that are remaining to be finalized.
Yeah. Any questions?
So, Laura, when do you anticipate, this is Martha Manning, when do you anticipate the BDIA one getting wrapped up?
I'm not sure. I've reached out to them a number of times about the contract and the questions that I had on it. And they have just responded that they're working through getting answers or figuring it out. I will get back to them in the next week to just check in. But it sounds like they're working on their end at this moment in time.
So regardless of when these are signed, they all have to be completed by December 31st, 2026, correct?
The contracts can span more than a calendar year, so they have until the end of February next year to complete work, and then until March to finalize reporting.
So we don't have to spend all that money in 2026? I thought we weren't allowed to carry money into the next year.
We can roll money forward. You can carry money forward in this program.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think Beth has a question.
Yes, so you've got 4 projects signed, but when will the money actually get out to those 4 projects?
So payment provisions for contracts are reimbursement based, and I had payment conversations with all of the awarded contractors to make sure the payment timeline would work for their schedule of effort. Aside from the Vermont Dairy Producer Alliance, everybody has accepted quarterly payments. And so they'll submit a report. That first report is due April 10th, which is important for thinking about when we want to have the April meeting. So you'll get a bunch of reports in early April. Upon receiving that report, they will be eligible to put in their first claim and get their first payment. The Vermont Dairy Producer Alliance, because they had a significant amount of expense upfront, we have built in an upfront payment that they have to demonstrate that they have expended before they get additional money. They have put in their first claim, and that is working through the payment process as we speak.
So to follow up on Beth's question, is it going to take them as long to get paid as it takes us?
So they are set up in Vision. That's part of the process that has to happen before their contract can even be signed. With your payments, what happened is there was an error in the Vision account for an individual. So the process is a little bit different for a contractor than it is for an individual. And so they are prepared to be paid as soon as the payment request is approved on my end.
Okay, thank you.
So what about New England Dairy, their payments?
So they, we had a number of conversations around payment provisions, and they said that they were fine with quarterly payments for all of their contracts. So all of their contracts are on the exact same payment timeline, which is quarterly, the first one being dispersed after the April report.
Thank you for the information.
Mm-hmm.
We've added a couple people, Laura, I think Dina's joined us, and
Thank
Mr.
you.
Jenkins as well. So that may help our quorum, right?
It does. We still need one more DFA member.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
do want to note the April 10th date is when all reports are due for every project. And we typically have a meeting in April. So that's just something that I had put in an email about thinking about when we want to schedule that April meeting, knowing that you're going to have 12, potentially more reports to review in advance of that meeting.
It sounds like we want a late April meeting if we wanted one. Does that make sense? Okay, any further questions about the projects that are in the pipeline? If not, we'll turn to the UVM proposal. I think Laura sent along some of the details of the proposal ahead of time. And if you have had a chance to review them, and maybe we can just go over it verbally here, Laura, what UVM is requesting.
Sure. So all of you did receive the updated proposal for just over $25,000, focusing on 4-H efforts and other dairy education efforts. So this was in direct response to your request at the April meeting. They did re-scope it down to the budget level that you requested, taking out a number of the original objectives, and sent back one that was primarily focused on or wholly focused on education in what I would consider the more traditional routes that they have been funded previously.
Any thoughts or questions?
I have questions about the dairy tour. And what the desired outcomes are from that tour. And I also have a question regarding their timeline, because they were proposing 15 months or 17 months. I'd like to see them come back on that schedule that everybody else is on, is to try to have the majority of the projects completed within the calendar year.
So you think that, Martha, if I understand it, you think the timeline is too long? You'd like them to button up the timeline to complete it?
Yeah, I'd like to see them on the same timeline as everybody else, because I think when you've got one project that's kind of on a totally different timeline, that it really it gets complicated when next year's project or proposals come along.
Martha, do you have a date you'd like, from start to finish, when they should start and when they should end? That might help us as we go back to them.
I think originally most people were told they needed to finish, within the calendar year. And then Laura explained there was an option if there's a problem potentially. But I think for initial planning purposes, I think they need to be done during the calendar year. And I think maybe possibly encourage them to do that farm tour during warmer weather. I think you get, if breakfast on the farm was still happening and we said we're going to do it in December, I don't think you're going to get the turnout. And most schools like to take their field trips toward the end of the school year. So I would think maybe encouraging them to if they're going to do the farm tour, to do it May, June. If they're targeting schools, if they're targeting 4-H kids, they could kind of do it in the summer months. But I would think to keep that in line with a calendar year project would be good. But that's just my opinion. Everybody's got their own ideas.
I think, was it Beth? Did you have your hand up, Beth?
So I did have my hand up initially. I was looking at when the National Dairy Conference is out in Madison that they go to. And I think that's is that October, November, Martha?
Yes, that's
yeah,
correct.
So Right. So I think that that does line up with getting that accomplished within the calendar year. So I just wanted to be certain that they had that flexibility to be sure that they got the students out to that National Dairy Conference. It's really, as Brian well knows, it's really an incredible conference and opportunity for our Vermont kids to go to something at the national level.
Thank you, Beth. Eugene?
Yeah, I guess I understand where Martha's coming from. It seems like we are giving out money for the year, and it seems like the projects ought to happen within that same year. However, I guess it doesn't always work that way, and I don't think we should restrict them. So I guess we would have to review how the tour or how their projects went later to know whether or not we would continue supporting the program. So I guess it's another way of looking at how we could measure whether or not the programs worked well enough for us. Otherwise, we become micromanagers of the projects, and I don't know if that's our job either, or I don't feel that's our job. Just a thought.
Thank you, Mateo?
Can anybody tell me like whether the funds that we're allocating for, a big trip to Wisconsin covers 100% of the bill for these kids, or if there's additional fundraising required?
I believe the answer is no, that it does not cover all of it, that they do additional fundraising.
I
I
believe
would
that's
say
correct also.
that I think that's correct.
Just checking, we give money to sponsor kids every year, and it's usually a kind of a sizable ask. Expensive.
And I think part of that is that we don't tell them how to divide this money, in that we don't say, okay, we of the just say 25,000, we want 15,000 to go towards the dairy conference, and the rest to go towards this tour. So they kind of divide the money, and I don't know how they do that.
I know the kids who go to the dairy conference, they have to do fundraising on their own, and then there's fundraising in different modes, and they have to pay in. It's not free.
Okay, Laura, maybe just refresh the ask, the monetary ask. What are they asking for?
Hold on one moment while I pull up the request.
Brian, go ahead while Laura looks up the dollar figure.
Yeah, I was just trying to think. I think our 4-H club did the fundraisers on our behalf, maybe, if I remember right. And that because we sent, I think that's kind of how it worked with us. If I remember right. I just figured I'd add that comment.
Thank you. Laura?
The total request from UVM is $25,551, of which personnel is $14,923. There's conference registration at $6,750, other costs at $615, and then the facilities and administrative costs at $3,263.
So I guess the
So there's
go ahead, Martha.
So there's no breakout between the dairy conference and this tour, correct?
My read of the budget is that it's primarily staff time. It's overseeing completion deliverables, the on-farm experiential learning experiences, and then the youth attendance at the National Dairy Conference. $750 a piece goes towards conference registration for 9 participants. And then the other direct costs include provisions for farm tours, which is like refreshments, and then bus or van rental during the tours as well, which equals $615.
So we're paying basically the conference registration, but we're not paying airfare or other transportation to get them there. Would be my kind of guess from what you just said.
For accommodations, yeah.
Yeah,
That's where
because most of the money would be spent on that one trip if that was the case. I believe they said there was 9 participants. I mean, then usually you have 2 advisors that go with them. So I
Right.
don't know if you can travel for much less than 2,000 a person, plus the fees and feed them. So your trip is going to be 18 to 20,000 alone. So we're definitely not funding the whole trip. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Andy's joined us. Hi, Andy. Good to see you.
Hi.
So I guess the question is, what do you want to do here? You've got the proposal, and we'd have to turn it in. I don't think we have a quorum, but if we could have maybe a motion, and then we could discuss a little bit more, get that through, and then we may have to do an online vote if we don't get the quorum here in the next few minutes.
I'll move to accept the proposal from UVM for $25,551.
Okay, it's been moved by Beth. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Eugene seconded it. Okay, any discussion?
I would ask that they try to keep it within the calendar year timeframe, as Martha suggested.
I'd almost like to see more money go towards that National Dairy Conference and less toward the tour, because we know we get a big bang for our buck, even though it's a lot of money to send those kids to the National Dairy Conference. I mean, we got 2 of them right here in this group. But when we put money into a on-farm tour, and I think the numbers that Laura sent out said they had 14 kids attend. I know I was at a meeting 2 days before that tour happened, and they only had 2 people at that time registered. And I'm not sure the industry gets any bang for our buck out of that. And I don't know if we can say we want more to go towards the dairy conference and less towards an on-farm tour. That's just kind of how I feel about it.
Or what are your thoughts? You can direct that in the contract, can't you?
I can. I will just note that there's only $615 that's going towards the tours. The rest is the conference registration at $6,750, personnel at $14,923, and the
But
facilities administration.
Half of that personnel cost is the person that organizes the tour. Correct?
It's Chris Callahan at 0.15 person months effort, Elizabeth Kenton at 0.938 person months, and Wendy Sorrell at 0.975 person months.
So Wendy does the dairy conference, the National Dairy Conference, and Liz does the tour.
Yeah. So I think, go ahead, Eugene.
I'm gonna add a comment. I guess I like where Martha's going. I guess it's a little late to micromanage it today. So maybe another year we should keep it in mind that if we would like to focus more on the Madison trip with the senior high school kids, then maybe that's what we should do at that point. So we should keep in mind what Martha's saying.
I'm okay with that, Eugene. I'm all right with that.
Okay.
Yeah. I would concur that we can't do a lot this year, but I think to bear that in mind. I know that my granddaughter Ella's 13, and she last year competed at the National Holstein Convention in St. Louis. This year she's competing at the National Holstein Convention in Orlando. Next year it will be Texas. And for her to go and represent New England at the national level, it's well over $2,000, $2,500 between airfare and lodging and the conference for the National Holstein Convention. And so the New England team members are doing fundraising, but it's a big deal. And Holstein does not actually subsidize the kids on the team at all. So just as a comparison, but between the 4-H and the Holstein Association.
Yeah.
And, I haven't been involved in 4-H very much. My kids didn't really plug into that, and it's a regret. We've hosted a few 4-H tours here. I'm not sure if they're part of like this kind of a funded program or if it was more like local chapter. Does anybody have a sense like how 4-H is doing in Vermont? I mean, like 14 having like 7 or 14 kids like show up for one of these programs, and it does seem like an outrageous spend per kid. Is this like an indication that like just the volume of kids in 4-H in Vermont is like pitifully low, or like where are we at?
Mateo, I know Eugene can back me up that the participation at Addison County Field Days with the youth is exploding exponentially. There were well over 100 kids that show their animals at Addison County Field Days. It's really growing, and the number of kids who are participating in the New England Holstein thing, it's very, very competitive for Ella to get a spot on that team to represent New England at the Nationals. It's amazing how many kids are showing up to participate in these programs. So Eugene,
awesome.
You can tell me what the number is at Field Days, but it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know my
agree
numbers,
with Beth.
Go ahead.
I agree with Beth that the dairy project in 4-H, dairy and horse are the largest projects. The farm tour that only had like 14 participants, that was not promoted to 4-H kids. That was promoted to some schools. So maybe they need to promote it more to 4-H and not do it during the week when kids, and that's micromanaging, I know, but it's like the 4-H kids during the week, I hope they're in school like every other person. But yeah, dairy is very popular.
It strikes me that like we're funding UVM to do something. I mean, 4-H is right in like the heart of the proposal, and yet like it doesn't, like what the history is and what the like proposal is with the farm visits doesn't really have much reach. So that's just my only like commentary there. It seems like a marketing problem.
I agree.
Yeah, Mateo, my experience over the last couple of years visiting the dairy shows, there's a lot of non-farm kids, I would call, that are now taking part in 4-H, and farmers are essentially maybe leasing a heifer or a calf, which is fantastic. They're getting it, and so I've seen that. I've seen that trend in a couple of the shows that I went to this summer, that which is really kind of nice to see. And I think that's one trend that I've seen over the last few years. Eugene?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that I really want to put money into this is because we need to get those non-farm kids, because there's not enough farm kids anymore. There's just so few of them. And you know, to replace Laura, to replace Nicole, to replace Anson someday, we need to get them some knowledge early on in life with what's going on in the dairy farm. And that's my goal here. And I think I think we're really on the right track here. We may need to put a little more money into this someday.
And we made some progress a few years ago with it. The council funded some farm camps, and we've got a blueprint for farm camps. And some of those that are being done across the state are really cool as well. And really, you know, serves a lot of purposes. And most of those are, you know, non-farm kids that are getting exposed to, you know, living and learning with a heifer 5 days a week. It's kind of cool. Andy?
While we're on the subject, hypothetically, could New England Holstein put together a proposal to have some of this money, a similar grant fund Vermont kids going to the National Holstein Convention? I mean, would that, you know, be similar enough to what UVM's effectively gotten covered that we could do the same thing and help cover kids like Ella or any of the others that are going on these expensive career building opportunities?
I think they would be eligible, right? I think they would be. Yeah. Mateo?
I mean, like one of the kind of the elephant in the room here is that, you know, something like 40% of the dollars are going to like overhead, right? So, you know, the fact is like, you know, local putting money into like a local 4-H groups where there isn't really that kind of like overhead, it's got to be just a much more impactful investment. And you know, I'm 100% for putting as much resource into like the youth education part of this, and the farm tours are, you know, probably important. It's just uh, the cost of like staff time and the overhead associated with like that program. If it's only going to be 7 to 15 kids, seems to be too much. I'm sure there are other like vehicles, and I'm not sure if we can just articulate to Callahan that like there's like a volume or a cost per like head that we're going to be paying attention to like moving forward. And those, can we telegraph something like that, Laura? This impact?
In the next request for application, we can add any kind of quantitative or qualitative details that you'd like to see as far as impact or cost per person. And I think for particular types of projects, as we've gone through this year and writing the contracts, thinking about the outcome metrics that we want to see at the front end so that people are building a budget around your own goals is going to be an important addition.
Okay, so it sounds like we can't take a vote because we're missing, I think, maybe one or two, but Laura can put together an online system to vote. And she'll put it, the motion will be there for everybody. So good discussion on that. And I think it helped us frame some work for maybe next year as well, what we'd like to see around youth education as well. Moving on, I think we wanted to have, and I don't think Jeremy was on, but Jeremy had a question related to some of the committee work. So I think we wanted to talk about committee work, and I don't know if anyone wants to lead that or not. Beth?
No, I was just going to say, Laura had said she was going to, well, I guess you did do the project updates. So you told us where you got 4 signed, 6 more in process, and a couple that are still kind of hanging out there.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that everybody who jumped on late
Oh, yeah. That's a
got
good
that
point, Beth.
project
Yeah.
update. So,
Yeah, that's good. And Laura probably she can jot a few notes down and her
Mhm.
message out too to everybody. Yeah, that's a good point, Beth. Thanks for bringing that up. All right, about committee work. Thoughts on that?
I would say since Jeremy's not here, maybe we table it till the next meeting.
Okay. Let's table that. So now it's I think we have anyone want public comments? I don't think there's anyone from the public here, but we got anyone else want to bring up any issues? All right, so just to recap, Laura's gonna jot down some notes on the status of all the projects that are in the pipeline. We're gonna send out the motion and everyone will vote on that. And then we'll get the results of that. I think the final thing we have to do is, this is always a challenging one because there's a lot of meetings in April. When do we want to have our next full board meeting in person? Our spring meeting. So I know it doesn't, Agamark, don't you have your spring meeting? That's
Yeah,
usually in April, right?
that'll be the 20 to 22nd. So I'd say we almost need to go to our meeting the last week of the month. If we want to get those reports in for the 10th and give Laura time to put them all together.
Okay, so
and for
that
us to
moves
read
it
them.
to the last week in April. Suggestions,
that
any
looks like
particular
good.
day, any particular day of the week that's better for folks? I know you work 7 days a week, but
Yeah. So I'd say the 29th to the 30th, that Wednesday or Thursday.
okay. I think we've done Wednesdays in the past if we want to. So what
We
date does
always
that
did
bring us?
Wednesdays for John Rooney, but he's not
Oh,
on anymore.
John, yeah. So, so we want to shoot for the Wednesday. So what date is that? I don't have my calendar for me.
29th.
29th?
29th.
All right. Did you like that location last time? Was that okay?
Which
I was
one?
fine with it.
The one in Waterbury?
No, oh, Waterbury. Oh, that one.
Good.
Well, now that I know how to get there, that was
Mhm.
pretty horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately it was somebody in the parking lot that
Yeah.
took me to where I was supposed to be.
So I do have a question about that, and I like the location.
Mhm.
But because of public meeting rules, is that actually a public site since you have to be kind of like credentialed to get in the door?
I think it is. That's a security issue, and we have all of those in every state building we have. You have to sign in. It's just knowing who's in the building, but I don't think it's still it's public space, right, Nicole?
Yeah, so people can RSVP if they would like to come in person, and security can know. Obviously, if they don't RSVP, we'll figure it out and talk to security in the moment. They can also join virtually.
Yeah.
I like the
And that's-
location. Works for me.
Okay, well, let's work on that. If anyone has any other suggestions, if you see another space in your travels that you think is good and accessible, and the other thing to keep in mind, because of the virtual part of it, we do have to have a place that people can join us online if they want. But if anyone has any other suggestions that they think it's a neat space, and if we need to rotate around the state, we're open to that, and we can work with you on that. Okie dokie. Eugene.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about when we're in person, I think it's important, at least it is to me, that we be in person for the governance committee and for the, what was the name of the other committee? Somebody help me
Visioning.
out.
Visioning.
Yes, the vision group. If the chairs of those committees, I'm very guilty of not participating this past year, and I just had too much on my plate, so I apologize. But I think in order to move forward, if the chairman could give us a rundown of what the committees have already discussed and gone through, so that when we get there in person, we've already got a bit of a heads up as to where everyone is at. And like I think it was Jeremy that brought up, how do we know that our online voting was recorded and how it gets done. You know, we went through this with Agromark now that we vote online, and it's got to be explained to us lay people as to how that's recorded and how it's done so that we know it's kind of, I don't like to use the word legal, but at least it's done properly or correctly. So if we could have some of those answers ready for us when we are asking them on that day, I think that'd be really helpful.
Noted. Thank you.
Can I say
Mateo?
something? Just on the visioning committee, there's like, I think we have some like fundamental work to do, and Martha's the chair, but there seems to be like some fundamentally like, really incongruent visions for what the purpose of this committee is, that I don't know how to resolve like next step. So there's a number of us that wrote a paragraph or two of what success looks like, and one of the entries was like, we're doing exactly the same thing. We're just like signing 90% over to, we're running by percentages just like we did before. And there's a couple of other like visions that were put out there. I just don't know how to get from where we are to like a coherent consensus about what success looks like for this committee. I'm just going to put it out there because Eugene, I don't want you to expect like that because it's going to take a lot of work to like build that consensus. We're coming from really different places, and there's been a lot of history, some of which I know nothing about. And I just wanted to like kind of tamp down your expectations for having something like really clear to present in April, because like like the feedback that I got from the exercise that we did left me like, well, unsure of where we can go.
My only thought on that is you just got to keep talking. You just got to keep talking. You got to keep working together, and you got to keep thinking about it. And I know it's hard work, and it's and it's not a lot of time is precious and so forth. But that's usually just got to just stay at it. Martha, do you want to say something?
I think Mateo's got it spot on, is that, because we all came into that committee with our own ideas of what a vision was, and whether you're looking at, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 30 years down the road. And, we did meet a couple times, and then I think it just kind of went on the back burner. So maybe we need to see if we can possibly schedule, a meeting and kind of get back at it.
So Anson,
I'm game.
There's my question, I guess, is to Anson, or maybe Beth, maybe somebody that has history. There's never been any charter here. There's nothing that we can read that says what our job is. It's just always been a group of people that come together and decide how to spend the 10 cents. So I think,
yeah, I'll refer to Beth. Beth's been on it a little longer than I have, but as chair over the last few years, it's there's stuff that's in statute. That's the stuff we have to follow. There's some really solid guardrails that we have to follow through USDA and the state and so forth. But outside of that, there is tremendous amount of flexibility, which you can do as long as you follow that process. I guess so. It's a simple way of putting it. But Beth, yeah.
No, I totally agree with what Anson just said. The statute is federal. So we have to look at the federal statutes. And I distinctly remember over the years, there were some different projects that came forward that we were not allowed to fund. And if we did fund those, then we were in violation and with the idea that our money would be taken by the feds. So in our there are some very specific guardrails, but as Anson said, within that we do have a lot of leeway to do projects, and it's always been that our money would follow the milk, and that was always a big deal, that we made sure that our our promotion checkoff dollars followed where our product was going. So, those two things. It's really the statute is set by the federal government because it's a national program, federally mandated. So, I guess those are the two big things: is to pay attention to that and know where we are within those guardrails, and communication. So.
Yeah, and if I go way back to, when I was deputy, and sometimes I attended those meetings back when they had them at the steakhouse, there were spirited discussions. It hasn't always been giant consensus. I mean, there have been really spirited discussions about the allocation of these dollars. So I don't think it's always been a challenge. So I don't think, Mateo, I don't think it's really new. It's just, the process is, as we know, is different now, but there have been some serious discussions over the years that have gone back a long time. But
Yep.
100%
I remember under Steve
understand.
Kerr, we had some very significant discussions on how much money would go where, and that was a few secretaries before Ensign.
Yeah, no,
And
now
Leon Graves, we had
Yeah.
very spirited discussions under Leon Graves. So that
and
was
the
Now, like this
decades
is,
ago.
I guess I just have some like more fundamental, like just really fundamental questions. It's like we're down to
Mark,
423 dairy
Yeah.
farms in the state now,
Right.
right?
yeah, and
Um,
but keep in mind it's based on volume though. So that's it's not
I understand, but like,
so.
is
But the
this
market's
is
changed. I mean, we're consuming more dairy, but we're just eating it differently, right? That's part of the discussion.
100%. I mean, like I'm just asking like a question to see whether there's alignment, like because I've heard I think Brian and Andy and like others at different times mention like the decline in the number of farms, right? And as being like an obvious trend. But is the goal of any of this spending that we're doing to like arrest that trend, or are we just following where the milk is going? Right. I mean, and we don't, that is the kind of like question I'm just like to try and get alignment together about, right? So that, there's a clear like kind of operating philosophy when we get a proposal, like, we might have like opinions about stuff, but like, are we aligned on what like our goals as an organization, as like a council are, right? And that's kind of the work I think that we need to do. And um, I'm up for it. I just
I
like
do have a question.
stuck my toe in the water, and it was like, oh, ooh, wow, we have a lot of work to do.
Go ahead, Martha.
Mateo, my question is, so if we work on this vision, so what's to say that, is the purpose of the vision to really guide the group, and in the future they're going to look back and they're going to say, well, the vision says this and this, but we'd really like to go kind of in a little different direction. I mean, does the vision statement that we're actually kind of going to put all this work into, does it really have any bite, or is it just kind of like
I think it's really a tool to align a group and an organization, and to like build some consensus around what success looks like for the council. What does success look like here? And success could be like more dollars per hundredweight. It could mean more farms in 10 years than there are today. There's a lot of different potential, outcomes here that we could qualify as success. It's about coming to some consensus about like what it is we're doing, so we can spend this money like strategically, not one-offs 1 year at a time, but like, I think about, since I've been milking cows, there's been $25 million that have been spent, right? And in the next 20 years, hopefully, we keep those checkoff dollars about where they are, and they don't decline. But what are we going to get for our $20 million in 10 years? 10 years. Yeah, no, it's $2 million a year. It's been almost $50 million, right, since I started milking cows. What do we want the next like 10 years and the $25 million that we're going to spend in those 10 years to buy us? Like, can we start agreeing on that so that like we can make incremental progress against some big picture goals and feel like we're succeeding, instead of, like, I don't know, going like, picking at stuff, like, and reacting to proposals. Maybe we can get some better proposals from people, you know what I mean? Because we're going to ask them to give us what we want.
It's hard
Instead
to
of,
measure,
like,
because look at how long we've been, and I get it, Evie's out on leave, but for months we've been waiting to see some utilization numbers, so that if that's your thing, is to say, okay, we're going to compare, and we want to at least, hold our share of the market, if not increase consumption. But we can't get those numbers. We can't even get a baseline.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
So I find
Great
it hard
discussion.
to set goals when you can't get a baseline to know where you're starting from.
So, Martha, you're going to continue to, and the committees are going to continue to meet. Is that what I heard you say? You're going to try to keep
I think we're
plugging
going to
away?
try to continue to meet, but it's hard to
All right.
set a goal and say, we want to, X number of dollars, and X number of pounds of milk is produced in Vermont. To set some goals, so that if your goal is to maintain and increase, hopefully, consumption across the board, that where you're starting from. Now, maybe cheese consumption is going to steadily increase, and fluid milk consumption is going to decrease, but overall market share is, somewhat stable. I think those things would help, but we don't seem to be able to get those numbers to know where we're currently standing.
Yeah, and on the national stage, we're having a lot of discussions about the pyramid now and the whole milk in schools. And I haven't heard a national discussion about milk in more than a decade or 20 years. And that's, I know there's one processor that is already putting milk in a box and ready to send it to schools, ready to go whole milk again in Vermont, which was encouraging. So I think there's, comes and goes, these trends, but it seems like, dairy's at least being talked about, and the challenge has always been returning it to the farmer, which has always been the challenge of how to get it back to the farmer. But Beth?
Yeah, so I remember when Diane Bosfeld tried really hard to work with Bob Wellington. on the whole Keep Local Farms program and getting some money, working through VDPC for some seed money for that program and working with the ski areas and all that to try to get some money back to the farmers that way. And it was really, really difficult to do because so much of our milk goes out of state. So, you know, putting an extra 5 cents, I mean, I remember, you know, the Booth brothers tried to work with us really hard. So it's very difficult to do those kinds of projects. Not to say it's impossible. It's just really, really difficult. And then I think the thing is that what Mateo said about, okay, in the next 10 years, we're going to have $25 million that will be from dairy farmers' pockets going into this program. And what do we really want to accomplish with that $25 million? And I think that's really important statement to be said. I know that previously with UVM research, I went to the dean at UVM and said, listen, you are leaving money on the table. You know, we need to work with this. So I think that's a really good, and Martha, I would encourage you to get us together for these visioning committee meetings and really talk about this. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Eugene, and then we'll go back to Laura.
Well, there's a lot of thoughts here, but right now, you know, with the price of milk for conventional dairies right now where it is, the 10 cents could be handed right back to the dairyman and be as helpful as probably what we're doing today. So we do have to continue to follow the milk. And maybe to add to that is we have to always keep in mind is how does the spend of this money help the dairyman that the money came from? And I think we've always had a pretty good vision in the past. I think we just need to narrow it down to a few good comments to keep our vision where it was. It is we are the only state in New England that doesn't have a program to hand out money to dairymen. I mean, Maine has one, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and you know what? Those guys are at the State House every year trying to get more, and they have $2 and $3 over us. So this is a difficult situation that Vermont's in. Yeah, we're losing farms, but volume-wise, we're not losing any. Volume, I believe, is the same. Anson and Laura can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still making the same amount of milk, if not more, and we've got to sell it to New York, Boston. We can't absorb it here. So that's why usually we spend our money outside the state to follow the milk. I think that's what we have to keep our vision. And I look forward to the future discussion on it. Thank you.
Laura?
I just wanted to offer the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center is coming close to finishing a research contract on the economic impact of dairy across New England. And it is understanding how milk moves across the region, the areas where milk that's produced in different states is consumed, the movement of money from rural to urban areas through the transfer of milk through the processing and distribution supply chains. That report will be done and available prior to your April meeting. And we will have a webinar that is on that report. I'll send you the date and the information to sign up for it when it's ready to go. So that is something that we'll be looking at. And I think it will provide you maybe a large portion of the information that has been a gap in really understanding how Vermont produced milk moves across the region and the dollar value of consumers in different areas.
Great. That's terrific.
Laura, is there a target for that when that's released? Is that?
The webinar is currently planned for March. We just scheduled it this morning. For April 1st. The initial data will be released at the summit that we are organizing on March 10th and 11th in Albany. So there's going to be a whole 45-minute session for everybody on the economic impact analysis data to date. It won't be totally complete, so it won't be ready for publication at that point. But 3 weeks later, on April 1st, we'll be releasing the finalized report at that presentation. And I'll make sure that you all get the information to be able to join that. Or if you come to the summit, you'll get the first data release there.
Great.
I 100% agree with Eugene. You know, we gotta like follow the milk. And I'm just gonna say one more thing, and then I've got to go. Right now, we are paying a $15 to $16 per hundredweight premium to the farms that we work with. Like double. Like a 50% like premium over market right now. And, you know, we're small. We're a rounding error, really, in the big picture. But there are like 5 farms in our area that probably wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for like cheese. And so that's like the perspective that like I'm bringing. And if there were another 15 like Jasper Hills in the state, it would be a different market for a, you know, be kind of significant. And that, like, for when I think about what success looks like, it's like that. How in 20 years, how can you have like, you know, 50 farms that are like getting a 50% premium over market?
Thank you. Well, great. Well, fantastic meeting. Laura's going to follow up with the vote and some supplemental information. Keep talking, keep communicating, and if anyone has any questions, you know, reach out to us, and we'll keep moving forward. Everyone have a great rest of Friday and survive the cold, and as we move through good old January. Thank you all.
Stay warm.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.